The fluorescent lights of the massive toy store buzzed overhead as Marcus Chen stood in the doll aisle at 9:47 p.m. on Christmas Eve, his phone pressed to his ear, listening to another executive make excuses about why the quarterly reports weren't ready. "I don't care if it's Christmas Eve, Gerald. The board meets in 3 days, and," he stopped mid-sentence when he felt a small tug on his coat. A little girl, no more than 7 years old, with tangled brown hair and a jacket 2 sizes too big, looked up at him with eyes that held far too much sadness for someone so young. Her cheeks were flushed from the cold, and she clutched a crumpled piece of paper in her small fist. "I have to call you back," Marcus said, ending the call despite Gerald's protests. "Are you lost?" Marcus asked, crouching down to her eye level, scanning the area for a frantic parent. The store was nearly empty, just a few last-minute shoppers desperately grabbing whatever remained on the picked-over shelves. The girl shook her head. "No, sir. I'm here with my mom. She's over there." She pointed toward the clearance section where a thin woman in a faded blue coat was studying price tags with the intensity of someone solving a life-or-death equation. "Then what can I help you with?" The girl bit her lip, her eyes welling with tears she was clearly trying to hold back. "Mom says wishes don't work. She says they're just for people in movies and books, not for people like us." She looked down at the paper in her hand. "But I thought, maybe, can you help mine?" Marcus felt something shift in his chest. He'd built a billion-dollar company, negotiated deals with the sharpest minds in business, but nothing had prepared him for the raw vulnerability in this child's question. "What's your name?" he asked gently. "Sophie. I'm Marcus. And you know what, Sophie? I think wishes are a lot like businesses. They need the right resources and the right person to believe in them." He smiled softly. "Tell me about your wish." Sophie unfolded the paper with trembling hands. It was a letter, written in careful, slanted handwriting with several crossed-out words and eraser marks. "Dear Santa," she read aloud, her voice barely above a whisper. "I know I'm not supposed to ask for big things, but could you please help my mom smile again? She cries at night when she thinks I'm asleep. She works at 2 jobs and her feet hurt all the time. I don't need toys or games. I just want her to not be so tired and sad. Also, if it's not too much, could you make sure we don't have to move again? I really like my teacher this year, and I made a friend named Emma. Thank you. Love, Sophie." Marcus felt his throat tighten. 3 years ago, he'd lost his wife Emma to cancer. Since then, he'd thrown himself into work, building walls around the grief, telling himself that providing for their daughter Lily through financial security was enough. But lately, Lily had been telling him the same thing at dinner, in different words. "Dad, you're here but you're not really here." "That's a beautiful wish," Marcus said, his voice rougher than intended. "Can I ask you something? Why did you come to me?" Sophie looked at him with those ancient young eyes. "Because you look sad too. Like my mom, and I thought, maybe if you help me, it might help you remember how." The wisdom of children could cut deeper than any business rival's criticism. Sophie, where, oh, there you are." The woman from the clearance section rushed over, relief and exhaustion warring on her face. Up close, Marcus could see she was probably in her early 30s, though worry had drawn lines around her eyes that made her seem older. "I'm so sorry, sir. She knows not to bother strangers." "Sophie, come on, we need to go." "She wasn't bothering me," Marcus said, standing. "I'm Marcus Chen, and Sophie was just helping me remember something important." The woman's eyes widened slightly at his name. Marcus Chen was plastered across business magazines often enough, but she didn't fawn or change her demeanor. If anything, she seemed more guarded. "I'm Rachel Morrison, and we really should go. Say goodnight, Sophie." "Mom," I showed him my letter. Rachel's face went pale, then flushed with embarrassment. "Sophie, oh honey, no." She looked at Marcus with a mixture of mortification and defiance. "We don't need charity. We're fine." "I can see that," Marcus said, and he meant it. Rachel's coat might be worn, but it was clean. Sophie's clothes were old but well maintained. These weren't people looking for handouts, they were people fighting with everything they had. "But Sophie asked me for help with a wish, and I'd like to honor that request. Would you give me 5 minutes of your time?" Rachel hesitated, her hand protectively on Sophie's shoulder. "Please, Mom," Sophie whispered. Something in Rachel's expression crumbled slightly. 5 minutes. They walked to the small cafe area near the store's entrance, where a tired employee was wiping down tables. Marcus bought hot chocolates for everyone, noting how Sophie's eyes lit up at the whipped cream, how Rachel tried to hide her relief at the warmth of the cup in her hands. Sophie's letter mentioned you work 2 jobs, Marcus began carefully. What do you do? Rachel's jaw tightened. I'm a medical transcriptionist during the day and I clean offices at night. It's honest work. I wasn't implying otherwise. I'm asking because my company, Chen Technologies, is expanding our medical AI division. We need people who understand medical terminology and can train our systems. It's a single position, day hours, with benefits. He pulled out his business card. I'd like to interview you after the holidays. Rachel stared at the card as if it might bite her. Why would you do this? Because 3 years ago, my wife died. And I've spent every day since then working myself into the ground, telling myself I was doing it for my daughter. But tonight, your daughter reminded me that what kids need isn't just financial security. They need parents who are present, who can smile. He looked at Sophie. She's wise beyond her years. She has to be, Rachel said quietly, and the weight of that statement hung heavy in the air. Marcus pulled out his phone. Gerald, still there? Good. Email me those reports, I'll review them tomorrow. It's Christmas Eve, go home to your family. He ended the call and looked at Rachel. I can't promise to fix everything, but I can offer an opportunity. A real one, not charity, a job you're qualified for that pays fairly. What you do with it is up to you. Rachel's eyes glistened. I don't know what to say. Say you'll come in for an interview. January 2nd, bring your resume. Sophie was watching this exchange with barely contained excitement, swinging her legs under the chair. There's something else, Marcus said, addressing Sophie directly. Your wish was for your mom to smile. But wishes are two-way streets. They work best when everyone involved is trying. He looked at Rachel. What makes you smile? Not what makes you proud, or what you think you should say, but what genuinely brings you joy. Rachel blinked, clearly taken aback by the question. When was the last time anyone had asked her that? I used to paint watercolors. Before, she gestured vaguely at the air, encompassing the catalog of struggles that had derailed her dreams. Marcus nodded. The community center on 5th Street has open studio hours every Saturday afternoon. Free supplies, free instruction. My daughter Lily goes. There's sometimes. He smiled slightly. Her therapist recommended it after her mom died. Said art helps process things that words can't reach. We can paint together. Sophie asked her mother, hope lighting up her entire face. Rachel looked between her daughter and this strange, sad CEO who had somehow seen them, really seen them, in a way no one else had in so long. A tear slid down her cheek, and for the first time in what felt like years, she smiled. Really smiled. Yeah, baby, we can paint together. Marcus felt something warm spread through his chest, thawing edges that had been frozen since Emma's death. When was the last time he'd done something that wasn't about quarterly earnings or market share? When had he last looked at Lily and asked her what made her smile, rather than what she'd achieved in school? Thank you, Rachel whispered. Don't thank me yet. The job interview is real, you'll have to earn it. But I think you will. He stood, preparing to leave them to their shopping. Sophie, can I ask you one more thing? Yes, sir. Keep believing in wishes. Your mom's right that they don't work like magic. But they work like seeds. You plant them, you nurture them, and sometimes, if you're lucky and you work hard, something beautiful grows. Sophie threw her arms around his waist in an unexpected hug. You're like Santa, but sad. Maybe your wish can come true too. Marcus knelt down again, this time with tears in his own eyes. Maybe it can. In fact, I think it just started to. That night, Marcus drove home through streets lined with Christmas lights, but instead of going to his home office as he usually did, he went straight to Lily's room. His daughter was still awake, reading under her covers with a flashlight. Dad, you're home early. I am, and I'm sorry it took me so long to get here. Lily, 13 and trying so hard to be grown up, looked confused. What do you mean? You're always home by 10. Physically, yes, but not really here. Not the way your mom would want me to be. Not the way you deserve. He sat on the edge of her bed. Tomorrow's Christmas. What would make you smile? Really, genuinely smile. Lily's composure cracked. I want to talk about mom without you leaving the room. I want to paint her portrait at the community center and have you there with me. Her voice broke. I want my dad back. Not the CEO. Just my dad. Marcus pulled his daughter into his arms and let himself cry for the first time since the funeral. They talked for hours that night, about Emma, about the pain, about the future. About wishes that felt impossible but maybe, just maybe, could begin to grow. Christmas morning, Marcus took Lily to the community center. The building was closed for the holiday, but he had a key. He sat on the board, though he'd rarely attended meetings. They painted together in the empty studio, and Marcus was terrible at it, but Lily laughed, really laughed, and that sound was worth more than every successful acquisition he'd ever made. On January 2nd, Rachel Morrison walked into Chen Technologies with a resume, a portfolio of her work, and Sophie's letter carefully preserved in her bag for courage. The interview lasted 2 hours. She got the job, but more than that, she got a community. Marcus connected her with other single parents at the company, with resources, with the kind of support network she'd been desperately lacking. In return, Rachel's training protocols revolutionized their medical AI division. Sophie and Lily became friends at the community center's Saturday sessions, bonding over their shared experience of having parents who were learning to be present again. Rachel and Marcus became friends too, slowly, carefully, two people who understood the weight of responsibility and the courage it took to be vulnerable. 18 months later, on a Saturday afternoon while their daughters painted landscapes side by side, Marcus and Rachel sat in the community center's small garden. "You know," Rachel said, "Sophie still has that letter. The one she wrote to Santa. Yeah, she says it's proof that wishes work, but not the way kids think. She says wishes work when people decide to help each other plant seeds." Marcus smiled, and it reached his eyes in a way it hadn't for years. "She's still wise beyond her years. She is. And she's happy. Really happy." Rachel looked at him. "We both are. Thank you for that night in the toy store. For seeing us. Thank you for letting me. For reminding me that being successful means nothing if you're not present for the people who matter." Inside the studio, Sophie and Lily were giggling over a painting mishap, their laughter echoing through the open windows. The sound carried on the summer breeze like a promise kept, like a wish that had taken root and bloomed. Marcus had learned that night that wishes don't work like magic spells or fairy tales. They work like questions posed to the universe, like invitations to be better, to do better, to see the people around us who are struggling and choose to help carry their burdens. They work when we're brave enough to ask for help and humble enough to offer it. And sometimes, if you're very lucky, they work by breaking your heart open in a toy aisle on Christmas Eve, when a little girl with tangled hair and ancient young eyes asks you to believe in something you'd forgotten existed, the simple, radical act of human kindness. The wish hadn't just come true. It had multiplied, spreading through 2 families, 2 companies, countless lives touched by people who had remembered how to be present, how to smile, how to believe that even in the darkest times, something beautiful could grow. All because one little girl refused to stop believing, and one broken man decided to listen.